So the PFL is going to be hosting a card this weekend. If you want to help me get a Turkish touch-up, please subscribe to the channel. We're nearly at 10,000. And if you want to get 10% off your first month of membership, please use the link in the description for the We Want Picks premium membership and use my code ARTEM. Let's get into the first fight on the main card. I'm only going to be breaking down the main card. I would have done the full card, however, I had my first day of university today, and I already have a quiz that is worth a percentage of my grade due tomorrow. McKee is going to be taking on Akhmed Magomedov. This is the return to 145 pounds for McKee. Now, at first, I didn't mind his move to 155. I thought that he looked quite good, honestly, at that weight class. But ever since he did just recently lose, of course, to Paul Hughes in a close fight, and a couple of other fights that he has had, especially the Spike Carlisle fight, where it looked like he wasn't too big for the weight class and kind of was getting out-muscled in moments, maybe the 145-pound return was inevitable, and I really like it, and I like it in this matchup. Now, we have no odds for this fight, but I'm going to assume McKee is a relatively sizable favorite here, and I think he probably should be. Now, Akhmed Magomedov, I will admit, I have been wrong about him in the past. I did pick him to lose to Nathan Kelly. Sorry, I tried to jump on a big underdog there in Kelly. I got proven wrong. Magomedov was able to submit him relatively easily. But in the past, we have seen that if you can defend the takedowns of Magomedov, his striking is very limited. He has a very very high, stiff, upright, vertical boxing stance. And it's just a very limited skill set that he does have. I think that McKee is well-rounded. He's got good wrestling. He's got good grappling. He's got good reversals. He's going to be the bigger fighter in this matchup. And he's the much better striker out of the two. I think that McKee does knock out Magomedov in this fight. We move up to Makkasharip Zhaynukov versus Takeshi Izumi. Takeshi Izumi actually does have a pretty good wrestling background, I believe, in the Freestyle Wrestling 2017 World Championships. He lost in the semi-final, so technically he did get either third or fourth in that championship there. That was still a while ago. He is 36 years old now, and he is pretty good in MMA. He is very small though, 5'9" at 155 pounds. Doesn't look small, but when you do see him in the cage against other fighters, he is quite small. I was able to find pretty much everything that he did in deep, and he actually has his own YouTube channel, which he does talk about as highlights, but it's in Japanese, so it's pretty hard to kind of follow. And Makkasharip Zhaynukov is a bit of a prospect for the PFL. Now, his most recent fight was on the PFL YouTube channel, and it said, wild fight at lightweight. And I thought, wow, this fight might be pretty good. It was not good. Zhaynukov, he looked okay. He looked better on the feet than I expected him to. But he just controlled Sanders for 15 minutes. The fight kind of sucked. And then before then, he was fighting for UAE Warriors and then a local promotion, RCC, over in Russia. Now, Zhaynukov, of course, did actually grapple against Arman Sarukian, which is pretty cool. And he reversed him in that grappling matchup. And I do think in this matchup, Zhaynukov, maybe he's going to struggle to take down Izumi more than kind of most people would expect on paper. But at the same time, Zhaynukov's striking looked relatively good against Sanders. And I do think that he's going to have a size advantage here, which he should utilize against Izumi. I'm going to pick Zhaynukov here. Not too much of a surprise, I'm sure. Now, I think some people might try and pick Corey Anderson here. I think Anderson is going to be the underdog. But once again, I think that I'm going to have to go with Goltsov. I did go through and I watched all of Denis Goltsov's most recent performances, and he's good, man. Like, he is actually a much more athletic heavyweight than I remember him being. He's actually, for a guy that's 6'5", very, very light on his feet. He kind of bounces around on his feet in the matchup, and then his striking's pretty good. He strikes from range relatively well. Now, he did get taken down by Oleg Popov very easily, but then he threw up a triangle choke and choked him out with a triangle choke from bottom position. You don't see that very often at heavyweight at all. He beat Thiago Santos. That was a sad performance. He took down Santos maybe like 3 or 4 times in the span of about 30 seconds. And Santos, he hasn't fought since. It kind of looked like he gave up. It was a sad performance. And a win over Linton Vassell is pretty underrated. Vassell does have some good wins, of course, over, I believe it's Madowski. And before that, he was on an absolute tear. I remember this 2023 run, knocking everybody out. Now, Corey Anderson, of course, a former light heavyweight. Once again, with Corey Anderson, he is a good wrestler. Once he gets on top, he's got good ground and pound. was beating Vadim Nemkov arguably, and I thought he was before he was on top of him, and he did slam his head into Nemkov's and cut a massive cut on Nemkov, which was a shame because Anderson was looking good and then he ended up losing. But if you watch Anderson's fights, he is a good wrestler. Now against Carl Moore, once again, 25-minute fight, probably 20 minutes of control time for Corey Anderson, just controlling the fight on top. Wasn't a very fun performance whatsoever. But the thing about Anderson as well is watching his striking, it isn't as dynamic as you would hope it to be for a guy coming up from 205 pounds to the heavyweight division, because you would expect him to have a very big speed advantage. Now, he's probably fighting one of the most athletic guys in MMA heavyweight at 6'5" right now, because Goltsov genuinely is pretty fast on his feet. Now, I will say Anderson definitely is going to be he will be the more athletic guy. I have no doubt about that. Anderson's got good head movement on the feet. He does move his head a lot. And his boxing's pretty good too, but once again, he does have that very upright sort of boxing style where his hands are very held high. And to be fair, Goltsov as well, when he throws his strikes, he likes to dip his hand. Like he'll throw and then it will dip. So maybe you could see Anderson catch him on the feet like that. But I'm going to go with Goltsov. I think he's going to have a pretty big size advantage here. He should be able to defend the takedowns of Anderson. He might look to offensively wrestle himself if Anderson is looking to land big on him on the feet too, which could make things interesting, but I do think Goltsov wins this matchup, and honestly, he probably does find a finish at some point in this matchup, as it is only 3 rounds. And now, speaking of finishes, I do believe Dakota Ditcheva is going to beat Inaba, and I think she's going to beat Inaba by knockout. Now, it is no secret that Dakota Ditcheva is not happy in the PFL. She actually wants out of her contract. She's expressed this multiple times, and I think that kind of finally the PFL were like, fine, we'll find you an opponent. And shout out to Sumiko Inaba for stepping up, but she's very small for 125 pounds. She is a fighter from Bellator that Bellator was trying to build up as their big prospect from Hawaii, I believe, but you know, it hasn't really worked all that well. You know, she did get pressured and beaten up on the feet against Soraya Roscoe, who was able to pressure her, a dirty boxer, a lot. Denis Kielholtz is actually a pretty solid kickboxer despite her record professional kickboxing background, if I'm not mistaken, and she lost that fight. I mean, Dakota Ditcheva, she's amazing on the feet. She hits really hard. She throws a lot of volume. She's really good in the clinch as well. She has finished opponents in the clinch with her knees. I believe it was Chelsea Hackett. She was finishing with knees and hooks to the body in the clinch. I think that she can do the same. I mean, I just don't think there's anyone at women's flyweight the PFL has on their roster that can beat Ditcheva, because she's already beaten Tyler Santos, who I thought would have been the biggest test for her. You know, she beats Liz Carmouche. And she's already beaten Jenna Bishop. Like, who else is there on the PFL roster at this point? I would love to see Ditcheva in the UFC, but it might not happen as soon as we would like it. I think Ditcheva wins, obviously. She's going to be a big favorite. Now, this fight is interesting. Johnny Eblen versus Costello Van Steenis. It's probably fair to say that Johnny Eblen is getting worse. He has not looked very good in his PFL fights. I think that would be a pretty fair sort of thing. But the thing is, beating Fabian Edwards has aged relatively well. Edwards was able to knock out Kasanganay. MMA method out. Eblen had a relatively difficult time dealing with Kasanganay, who was the light heavyweight champion at the time. And, you know, in Bellator, he looked amazing. He dominated Gegard Mousasi when Mousasi was on his big run and was looking great as a big underdog. And then after that, he beat Anatoly Tokov, who, you know, not only has a great record, is also a great fighter. And I know that John Salter might be the oldest man to ever step in an MMA cage. John Salter's still pretty good, too. Like, he did beat Aaron Jeffrey, but Johnny Eblen, his PFL sort of fights, less impressive than his Bellator fights. He's obviously a wrestler. The striking is good, but it hasn't really improved as much as you would expect it to. Mostly is boxing on the feet with some leg kicks here and there. The thing about Bellator, man, is ever since we just saw Patchy Mix get absolutely fraud-checked, and to some extent Patricio Pitbull, but at the same time, Patricio Pitbull is elderly, so it's not so bad. It's kind of like, does Johnny Eblen just get smoked by Gregory Rodriguez? Like, is that the level of fights we're talking about right now? Instead of like, oh, Johnny Eblen, like maybe he could beat Israel Adesanya, was something that many people, including myself, believed could happen. Now, I don't think I ever explicitly thought that Eblen was going to beat Adesanya, but because of the wrestling style it definitely was an interesting matchup that could maybe in theory still happen, which I'd be excited to see, but I think Izzy would clean him up, honestly. But Costello vs Steenis, I watched his fight. His win over Grigory Babin is actually very underrated. Babin was on a very big win streak at the time. I know he is 41 years old, but Babin was on a good win streak. A lot of first round finishes too. And Steenis was able to take him down with no real issue. I know that Babin kind of did pull triangle in the first round, but he took him down in the second round, submitted him very soon after that with a Von Flu, which you don't see every day. And then he knocked out Ajayovita Dantos in 48 seconds, which is a wicked victory. I couldn't find the matchup against Douglas Lima, but I do remember watching it, and Lima was able to find a lot of success with pressure and clinch control because Van Steenis is good everywhere. Van Steenis has a win over Fabian Edwards too. This fight was awful, absolutely terrible. I just did not enjoy watching it the first round. They didn't do anything. A judge gave Van Steenis a 10-8 in the second round. Personally, don't really agree with that. And then Van Steenis controlled the third round. Or was it? I don't even think it matters. The fight sucks. Just don't bother watching it. It's terrible. I think Van Steenis in this matchup could present a pretty interesting striking sort of problem for Eblen because he does hit hard, and Eblen, I guess aside from Edwards, hasn't really fought someone that does possess big one-punch knockout power at 185 pounds, but at the same time, I do think that Johnny Eblen can take down Costello Van Steenis and find success with his wrestling. I'm going to go with Eblen to win a 25-minute decision in this fight. Van Steenis is dangerous in general. Like, he does have good power in his hands. He does have a grappling ability from bottom position as well. He does have submissions, a lot of submissions on his record, but I just think that Eblen should be able to win a decision. I know that these picks aren't really kind of like super big underdog picks, but they are who I think wins, and I did do some research for this card. I was going to do the prelims, but as I said, on my second day of the term, I literally have a quiz that's worth a percentage of my grade, but I'm very excited just kind of see how Abraham Babley goes. And then aside from that, Mikhail Grug, if you guys know him, he's the guy that walked out with his hands by his waist and got knocked out by Masraf in 10 seconds, who then lost to Vakatov. Anyways, I'll see. Oh, and Kosi Indabelli's on this card too. He's a fun striker. Very fun. I'll see you guys in the next one.